In this video on Lightroom, we're going to concentrate on local adjustments. In the previous video, we made global adjustments, meaning we made adjustments to the overall image, tonal range, highlights, shadows, and so on. And so in this image, or this video, we're going to go ahead and fine-tune these images, making selective or local adjustments. And so I'm going to start with this image. So here, if I double-click this and I click on the Develop module, brings it forward. And so some of the things we want to adjust, remove blemishes and remove dust if you have dust from your sensor, or you'll see it little fuzzy balls in most cases in the sky or in any open area. Blemishes, acne and so on, stray hairs, or there was a perfect shot of something and there was like a little piece of trash in the foreground. All those things we can go ahead and remove locally in Lightroom. And so some of the tools that we'll talk about today are the adjustment brush, where you can actually affect the exposure, the highlights, shadows, and so on in selective areas. We also have the spot removal tool, and that allows us to go in and remove those blemishes and remove those elements that are unwanted in your image. Another couple tools, the graduated filter, kind of gives us a nice blend from one value to another. And the radial filter, which does a similar effect except in more of a circular format. And so we'll go through and look at these different things. Now let me jump to this image real quick, because one of the things I want to show you is, as part of that kind of local adjustment, is we want to crop the image. And so in this case, when I shot this, I knew that I wasn't so concerned about having, these clamps in the way. And so I knew I could crop them out later. Now, some things you can have that kind of flexibility, some things you can't. So you definitely want to make sure that you try to frame the shot as best as possible, but for this situation, it worked out to my benefit to do it this way. And so just above the basic options here, we have the crop tool, or crop overlay, but it's the crop tool. We have, and when you stop over any of these images, it gives you the name of the tool, spot removal, and that letter in parentheses is the shortcut. So if I hit the Q key, it brings up the spot removal tool. Here we have red eye reduction or red eye correction. This is graduated filter, radial filter, and adjustment brush. And so we'll take a look at each one of these items here in this video. So first I'm going to hit the crop overlay. Now you have different options here. You can specify a 1:1 crop, 4:5 or 8:10. So if you want to print it to 8:10, you can use this aspect ratio, 5:7, and so on. Or you can enter a custom one. Here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to crop in on the sides. Now, one of the things about shooting camera raw and using raw files in general is they are non-destructive. And that means you will never delete that information. You have to delete the file to get rid of that information. Definitely don't recommend that. But here, what we can do is now crop that out. So when I'm in the tool, I have these edges here that I can click and drag in or out. And then when I click off the tool, it now shows it's cropped. Again, it's non-destructive. If I go back into the crop tool, I can go in and re-crop this, which is fantastic. Okay, so I just wanted to show that crop option. Same with this, crop tool. And if I wanted to bring that in, again, I shot it on paper so I wouldn't mess things up. We'll talk more about composition, but you have these grid lines, and these are called the rule of thirds. And so you can kind of direct the viewer's eye. Let's see, do I want to go that way? Yeah, it's fine. To certain areas of your image. Okay, so I'm going to crop it this way. And crop. Now, if I notice that, and it kind of did, it looks a little tilted. If you have a landscape or something like that that maybe isn't quite perfectly straight, okay, here you can set the crop angle. And so when I click on this tool here, I can either dial it in this way, look at that, or I can use the crop angle tool and say, you know what, if I wanted this to be straight, or if I just wanted the table to be a little bit straighter, I'm going to drag this based on where I think it should be horizontally. Now notice it shifted the crop down a little bit, it rotated it by about 2 degrees, and then it reframed the crop a little bit. Getting out of the crop tool, so this is the before and after. I don't know. I'm going to leave it after. And now it's cropped. Piece of cake. Now, you're probably in your workflow, as you're editing things, you're not going to go just using crop tool and going to each image and doing that. Okay? You're going to go in and, you know, make all your adjustments. Your lens correction here, click that. So this would be the process. Then the basic options here, and I can hit as shot if I know the white balance, or I click on here and hit the white of the helmet, make it more neutral. And then what else? If I want to adjust the exposure, shadows, this part in here is really, really dark. So I'm going to open up the shadows, but I need to bring the highlights back down and maybe bring the exposure back down. Now you're going to get to a point where it's not going to work out well for you. We need to do selective adjustments. So here I can bring that back down a little bit, and highlights, that's good. All right. And one thing I'll point out, it's a little bit of a thing I didn't quite catch when I was shooting this is, can anybody tell? I'm pointing to it. Notice here, white paper, white helmet. And so unfortunately, I mean, fortunately, we're just masking this out, meaning I was going to cut this out in Photoshop at a later date. But I lost the edge here because it's white against white. And so when you're shooting something, especially if you're dealing with anything product-wise, or you've got a person, you know, against a background that has similar values or similar tones, be careful because you could actually lose them in that background. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I know there's a lot to think about, but let's make it one more. Why not? So here, I'm going to hit the crop tool, and you can see I'm kind of jumping around. It doesn't really matter. You know, one of the things you do want to establish is kind of the process. So here I can just get a lot tighter. You know, and so again, we hit lens correction, all set. We went here and hit our white balance and made our basic adjustments, and then went to the crop tool and did our thing with that. Now, of course, there's going to be some fine tuning. You can find the process that works best for you. You can make these broad stroke global adjustments first and then go back in and fine tune things, or you can stick with, you know, one image at a time from start to finish. That's up to you. For me, I kind of go back and forth, but I think a lot of the times I go in to work quickly. I make all my lens correction stuff and my basic adjustments, white balance and so on, all the way across the board on the images that I know I'm going to work on. And then I'll go back in, as well as my cropping. And then I go back in and fine tune things. Number one, it gives me a chance to kind of regroup and see the image cropped and adjusted, as opposed to seeing it kind of a little too dark or too light initially and then working from there. So it kind of gives me a set of fresh eyes when I'm working on it. And so, again, that's totally up to you, you know, how you want to work. I'm kind of giving you guys some starting points and some guidelines, but you will find the process that works best for you. Let's see, flash. Oh no, that wasn't flash. It's kind of shady. We'll leave it as a shot. How's that? Auto because it's a car. Shadows, open those up. You can see what a difference. Huge difference, you know, from as it was to this. Okay. Now, one of the beautiful things about shooting camera raw is you have so much more information to work from. And so if this was a JPEG or, one of those, probably a JPEG off your phone, there's no way you'd be able to bring that information back. It's gone forever. And so here, if I need to lower the highlights or whatever, I can bring that back down, maybe increase the overall exposure just a tad, kind of give it a little bit more life. And then the blacks, if I need to darken them or even lighten them up a bit. Now, you don't want to go too far because then it looks kind of fake. It looks kind of odd. But here, it looks not too bad. Again, let's take a look at our before and after split. Huge difference. Look at that. Dark and light. Who would want to buy this car? I wouldn't want to buy this car back here, but I want to buy this car over here. So that one's done. Now, this one actually could lend itself probably to the cropping and angle. So let's play with that real quick. So I'm going to click on that again. And we'll say, okay, that's probably pretty straight, but let's see. I don't know. Actually, that's not too bad right there. Going uphill. Subtle. Subtle to non-existent. It said it wanted to do it, so it changed it a little bit. Cool. Okay, good. So we have our cropping. We've done our basic stuff.